In this video, I will show you the easiest way to add materials to your objects in Blender. There are plenty of options available for you, but I picked the easiest 4 methods plus a bonus method to add materials. First, select material preview for viewport shading so you can easily keep track on different materials when applied on the object. Then in the properties, go to materials. You can see already there's an assigned material which is named as material. You can easily change the color of this material using the color wheel. As we change the base color, you can see now the color of the cube is changing. That means we are assigning a new color to the material. Now go to the shadings workspace. Blender has a node-based shade editor which is pretty much easy to use for different shaders or simply what we call as the materials. You can drag, zoom, copy, delete whatever you want. We'll come back to this shader editor in a bit. Now back into our default layout. Here I want to add a different material or a color to each faces. So I'm going to add a new material here, hit new, and I'm gonna rename it as material blue. Also I rename this previous material as material red. So it is well organized and easy to deal when you have a lot of materials within a single object. Now go to edit mode and select the face. Assign the newly created material blue to the selected face. That's how easy it is. Okay, now I add another material. This time I do not create a new material. Instead I duplicate previously created material blue and change it as material green. Now you can see there are 3 materials assigned to the same single object. In the shading workspace, navigate to the shader editor and look, when I change materials from here, it changes the applied material on our object. So if you need to switch between materials, you have to use this material tab of the properties section. Since this is a node editor, you have unlimited probabilities of creating new materials using different types of nodes. I'm gonna add a Voronoi texture and plug the color output of the texture to the input of principal BSDF like this. It doesn't appear on our object because we didn't assign the object or any faces to the texture material. Now you can see the change. Then as I said previously, there are thousands of possible combinations of nodes to create something really cool. But I'm gonna add a quick color ramp as a demonstration. This color ramp outputs different colors depending on its input and also the colors we assign. Anyway, now our cube has 4 different materials. Having a larger number of different materials is not a very good practice in modeling because it draws a lot of performance to render each material separately, especially when you are dealing with game assets. So you have other options to use different colors but with a single material. I created another cube and now I'm going to use a color palette as my material. This is almost similar to the texture mapping but with few alterations. I add a new material and then go to shadings workspace. Here I drag my color palette to the shader editor. This color palette has a bunch of colors but each color occupies only a 1 by 1 pixel space. You can see this palette is stretched all over the cube because the interpolation is set to linear by default, so I change the interpolation mode to close. I like to open my color palette in the default layout so I have more freedom to change the colors even while I build the object. Open UV editor and then select the color palette. It is really tiny so you need to zoom up a bit to see the color palette and its colors in each pixel. When you go to edit mode and check the faces, you might notice that each face occupies a space from our color palette and that's what appearing on the cube's skin as well. I scale this face on the UV map to 0 by hitting S and then 0. Now you can see the face is scaled to 0 and placed on green color, so the face of the cube is also in green. We can grab the face on UV map around different colors and watch how the colors change on the cube. Now I select all the faces of cube and then select all the faces on UV map and hit S to scale and 0 to scale to 0. This way I can put all the cube faces into a single pixel, resulting the cube in green color. Also I can select individual faces from the cube and move the faces on color palette by hitting G for grab. This method is really easy and convenient for indie developers who can't spend hours to model and then to add materials. Since this is my laziest and often used method, I have a bit favoration toward it. So I add a link on the description to download this material color palette for you for free. Both of these methods have pros and cons. This way you can't customize each color with the other options such as roughness, glossiness, metallicness or emission, whatever. You can overcome these problems by keeping minimal number of materials with different settings but plugging the same color palette to the color input. Anyway, leave that for bit advanced users. This video is for absolute beginners. Next, we are going to use an external texture as our material color input. Go to shading and drag this beautiful tile texture to your node editor. I downloaded this texture a while ago from a website and I'm extremely sorry that I can't remember the creator of this texture to give the credits. Now you can see our cube got the tile texture properly, but but I want to adjust it a bit. These principal BSDF shaders have a bunch of settings to change so we can achieve the look what we are exactly looking for. I'm gonna increase the roughness to give it a solid look. Now I open my UV editing workspace. If you don't know what UVs are, they are basically the unwrapped 2D edition of our 3D object. UV editing is a big topic to discuss. If you want a quick tutorial for UV editing, please let me know in the comments. You can see how the cube is unwrapped on the tile texture. I'm going to scale these islands to contain more tiles per square, so our cube will have more tiles per face. At the beginning I said I'll give a bonus material as well, so we'll go to the first method again. This time we are going to create a texture map using the previously assigned materials to this cube. A texture map is a kind of projection of the faces of a 3D object into a 2D image, pretty much similar to UVs, but what UVs do is UVs of an object tell the texture map or a color palette about the exact locations where to display the texture or color on the 3D surface, like a GPS system. Click new to add a new image so we can see the faces of the cube projected on the black image. Now we are going to bake the materials onto this image. Go to shade editor, add new image and select the image you just created few seconds ago. Keep this image unplugged so we can bake the texture onto it. Copy the same image node onto other materials as well. Now head to your default layout, change the render engine to cycles. If you have a good GPU, set device to GPU to faster the baking process. Now scroll down to the bake tab. We are going to bake this first without any light. You can see there's nothing baked on the texture map because we don't have any light in the scene. So I'll quickly add an area light and hit the bake again. This time we get a pretty ugly bake, but we know it works. So we can add another cube and assign a new material. In the shader editor, add the new image texture and select our newly baked texture map. Nice. Now this cube does not have few materials, instead it has a single material with a texture map. You can play around a bit to identify best possible lighting setup for your object and bake a stunning and good quality texture map. Anyway, there's another method. We'll use the same texture map and cube for the demonstration. Here, go to texture paint and select a beautiful color from the color wheel. Now you can paint on the image, or if you like you can even paint on the object as well. If you want a new image to paint, the procedure is simple. Hit the disconnect button and add a new texture, and then change the image texture to our new texture map. You can paint whatever you want and then save the image as a texture map. Sometimes I build objects with a lot of different materials if there are few types of shaders in it, but then I figure out methods to minimize the number of materials. In this Elixir collector vessel, I use different materials because I have different types of shaders like emission shaders and this stripe texture on the balloon. This is the second video I made for this channel, so I am giving this ship for you guys as a gift and try to bake a texture map for this entire object. There's an emission shader for some parts. You can assign a different material for those shaders, no big deal. You can download this Elixir collector vessel from the link in the description. I really appreciate if you can subscribe and share my videos. It will definitely help me to grow. Follow Bukkbeek on Facebook and Instagram. Use the hashtag Bukkbeek if you want me to reach your work when you re-upload on social media. Chill out, bye.